Allie. Thanks for coming in.
Yeah, no problem. Thanks for seeing me again.
Yeah, you're welcome. How have you been?
Been okay. How are you doing?
I'm great. Thank you for asking. Can I get you coffee or anything?
I'm okay. Thank you, though.
Okay, great. So we'll be meeting for about 15 minutes, and is there anything in particular you wanted to discuss today?
Just I think more of the same that we discussed last time. My anxiety stuff is still definitely in high gear, so I guess just mostly stuff revolving around that.
Okay, so can we talk a little bit more about the anxiety?
Yeah.
Okay, great. Are there any ways that the anxiety is popping up for you? Are there any behaviors associated with the anxiety?
Yeah, I've noticed more and more that it seems to be manifesting itself in like a physical way. So I'm like obsessed with either like pulling out my hair here or on my eyebrows or my eyelashes.
Okay. And that's a pretty normal thing to have happen. I've heard of many people having that, dealing with that before. So I understand that can be a troubling issue for you.
That's good to hear because I thought I might be the only one.
Yeah, there's definitely people that are going through that as well, so you aren't alone. So how do you feel when you are doing the actual pulling? Like what emotions maybe come up during that time?
I notice myself doing it more when I'm sort of in the spotlight, if that makes sense. So I'm a student, and when I'm in class and have to either do public speaking, give a presentation, or even just like if I'm sitting in my chair and, answering a question or something like that, participation is a huge part of our grade, so I can't really get around that. So when I notice that when I am participating, I notice it the most, I think, when all eyes are on me, if that makes sense.
Okay, so it sounds like the behavior is popping up when you are having to speak in front of people and, when you're asked to be in front of a crowd, maybe.
Yeah.
Or in front of your peers.
Yeah.
Okay, that's interesting. And then maybe, are there any instances besides being in front of people that this behavior happens?
Sometimes when I'm just thinking about things that stress me out, like school or my relationship, it's just sort of anxiety-producing emotions. I think I've definitely sort of connected the dots in terms of the fact that it happens most when I feel anxious.
Okay, all right, that's great to know. I know. Do you want to see what's up with that? I think it's probably still, yeah. We're still good. How far are we? 3 minutes? Okay, I'll cut that out.
Okay.
Sorry, I'm like blanking right now.
So maybe like ways to deal with it.
We'll get there for sure.
Yeah.
So maybe we can explore the root of the anxiety. I know you had mentioned that you get it mostly when you're in front of people or public speaking, but is there any other time that it happens? I know you mentioned also, when you're feeling anxious, but any other times that you can think of?
Not really. I don't think. I don't know. Like I said, when I'm thinking about things that stress me out, I guess that produce anxiety. I notice it, but it's mostly when I'm in front of people, I would say.
Gotcha.
I don't like to have all eyes or all the attention on me.
Mm-hmm. So it's not necessarily when you're home alone and working on tasks.
Yeah, no.
Okay. All right. How long has this issue been going on?
The anxiety in general, probably a few years, I think, as I've, come into this part of my adulthood where I feel like I'm supposed to have things figured out and know what I'm doing and feel positive and confident in my relationship and my career path and all that kind of thing, where maybe I'm just putting too much pressure on myself, but I think I just notice it more trying to meet these expectations that I've sort of felt in this like later part of my late 20s. So the anxiety in general, a few years. The hair specific stuff, maybe like 6 months.
Okay, so it sounds like this is a pretty new behavior that you've kind of been dealing with.
Yeah, I mean, 6 months seems new in relation, I guess, to how long the anxiety's been going on, but it seems like it's been with me now for a while, and I'm really subconscious about it, so I think that also maybe contributes to the anxiety.
Mm-hmm. So what would happen if you were to stop pulling?
That's a good question. I don't know, and I don't know. Like, I try to tell myself, like, in the moment, like, you, in front of people, like, you look weird, or people must be, like, judging you, and that kind of thing, and I still can't seem to get myself to stop.
Okay. Well, maybe we can explore some ways, some behaviors that we can introduce to you to kind of replace the behavior of the pulling. Does that sound good?
Yeah, that's a good idea. I haven't thought about that.
Okay, great. And just real quick before we actually get to the replacement behaviors, how is the problem affecting or impacting the other areas of your life? Maybe like your health, relationships, your school, or overall functioning? Shoot. Okay, let's pause that. I'm supposed to ask one question at a time, and I just asked 5. So we're going to get that out of there. Okay, so before we really dive into the replacement behaviors, can you tell me how the problem might impact other areas of your life? Maybe, for instance, your relationships?
I think that it makes me more self-conscious about my physical appearance. So, like, for example, in my relationship with my partner, like, I feel like when I notice him looking too long at my face or something, it'll make me feel more self-conscious, like he must be noticing that my eyebrows are gone or something like that.
I can understand that would be difficult, especially with an intimate relationship.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, okay. What about school? Has it affected your grades at all?
No, not really.
Okay. And any other areas of your life, maybe even just overall functioning?
Yeah, I think that back to the school thing, now that I think about it, I don't think it's affected my grades. However, the anxiety about school, like surrounding school, one of the ways that I cope with, or really don't cope well at all, but one of the ways that it sort of manifests in me is that I put things off until the last minute. So I procrastinate, and then it ends up being 12 or 1 a.m. the night before something is due, and that's when I'm starting. So it actually does take, I haven't noticed that it's really affecting my grades, because I usually do get things done, and I do them in what the grades seem to be okay, but it's definitely taking a toll on, like, my sleep patterns, which makes me grumpy, which affects my relationships, my friendships, my general mood, all that kind of thing.
So it is kind of, it does sound like it's affecting a lot of areas of your life.
Yeah.
So, yeah, so it sounds like you do want to make a change, and
yeah, I definitely recognize it, and I want to like try to figure out some ways to help cope with it, and then, like, I don't know, some, like you said, some maybe like replacement behaviors, because I have this one that I do all the time, and I would like to figure out something else that I could do that's not that.
Mm-hmm. Okay, great. Well, it does sound like you are an excellent student, and that's definitely one of your strengths is, completing your work and getting great grades. So I think that, addressing this behavior will only help you as a student and make you an even better candidate for maybe some jobs in the future. Yeah. And if we can kind of get the anxiety lessened around public speaking and reducing some of the behavior of polling itself, then, you might be more confident out in the workplace once you eventually graduate. So, have there been any other previous attempts to solve the problem? Or maybe have you handled anxiety in ways before?
I saw a therapist when I was in college, and that was definitely something that we discussed, but I think since then it's gotten worse.
Okay.
So nothing successfully. I think I went and saw her maybe like for a few months or something like that, and then stopped when I graduated and sort of, moved away from where I was seeing her, so I just organically sort of stopped seeing her because I wasn't in the same place. So to answer your question, no, I don't think nothing's really, I guess, attempted, but hasn't really been successful.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So are there times in your life when you don't experience anxiety?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I really enjoy being outdoors.
Okay.
Taking hikes with my partner, with my dog, and like hanging out, being around my family. I have quite a bit of family in the area, so I think that those are the times that I feel like the most relaxed and least anxious.
Okay, great. Well, it sounds like you have a great support system, which is awesome.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, since it sounds like you are experiencing the behavior of pulling mainly when you're in public speaking situations or when all eyes are on you, I think that we can really maybe find some replacement behaviors for you to utilize when you are in those circumstances. Okay. So I have a couple examples of some replacement behaviors if you'd like to listen or hear about them. I could suggest making tick marks on a sheet of paper. So when you do have to speak in public, you can kind of just tick, 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 have your hands moving. Right. So your hand is doing something different. Yeah. Instead of pulling, it's just making little tick marks. Yeah. Do you think that sounds like something you might be able to replace?
I could definitely try it. It sounds like something that, if my fingers are doing that, then they won't be doing this. So
exactly.
That's a good, I could start with that and try it and see how it goes.
Great. Another option would be to have a bracelet and maybe it has beads on it and you just go from one bead to the next. Okay. I definitely would recommend that as well. I think either of those would be a way to keep your hands busy when you are in those situations. Great. So do you feel in agreement with those replacement behaviors?
Can I have your bracelet?
Maybe I'll bring you one next time we meet. How about that?
Okay.
Okay, well, our session is about to end, so I want to thank you for coming in. We discussed the anxiety and the behavior of pulling and some replacement behaviors to go along with that. Yeah. And I think next time in the future, when we meet again, we can discuss how those behaviors are working for you. Okay. And see if the replacement behaviors are actually working and see if there has been an instance of, not pulling when you're in those anxious situations.
Yeah, I'll try really hard to start with that one suggestion, and then we'll see how that goes.
Okay. And maybe you can keep track of the behaviors and see how many times it's happening. Okay. So do you have anything else you wanted to discuss or any feedback before we end and close our session?
I hadn't really thought about, having a replacement behavior, so I appreciate you, bringing that to the table for me, and I'll definitely give it a try. I think that's somewhere to start, and, I think about this all the time myself, but I've never really been able to come up with a, maybe alternative solution, so that's really helpful. Thank you. So I'll try it.
Great. I'm glad that works for you. Well, awesome. Thanks again for coming in. I will definitely look forward to seeing you next week.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.